Pokemon, Kaiju, Dragon Ball, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews. Hey there, collectors, it's Steven here, and we are rounding the corner on the DC vs. Dark Horse sets reviews from NECA. The last of the NYCC set to be released from NECA is going to be the Green Lantern versus the Predator set. In this set, it goes back to the old comic where the Predators joined up with the Yellow Lanterns, the Sinestro Corps, whatever you're going to call it. So in this set, not only do we get a Hal Jordan head sculpt, we do also get a John Stewart head sculpt. However, there are a couple of issues with the set, as all of these sets have had. So you really got to think long and hard if you're going to make the purchase. So let's take a look to see whether or not this set is worth adding into your collection. This is going to be a disclaimer I'm going to put in all of the DC vs. Dark Horse set reviews. The paint on these guys is rather concerning because not only are we going to have some paint flakage due to the fact that the joints were kind of gucked up with paint, as you can kind of see here on some choice examples, I also had to spend about a collective hour to hour and a half heating up all the figures and freezing them so this way I could loosen up the joints and get some of that stuck thick paint to crack. So if you're going to be getting this set or any other set, you are going to have to probably put in some effort to make sure that they all work. Out of all of the figures, I only had one that worked perfectly fine on the box. That was the Sinestro Corps Predator. Everything else almost broke something. Now that that disclaimer is out of the way for the final time, let's go ahead and start with the Green Lantern. So by default, we get the Hal Jordan head sculpt, and don't worry, we'll take a look at the John Stewart head sculpt in a little bit. And this is probably my favorite of the four sets, just because I think the Green Lantern was executed rather well. We don't have a whole lot of issues, at least on this one, and the Predator looks great too, but we'll take a look at the Predator in just a minute. So for the Green Lantern, we do have some nice decal action on the chest, which looks perfectly fine. Head sculpt, okay, so for this one, the paint application for the face, it looks all right, not perfect. You know, he's grinning his teeth and he's getting ready to fight, but the hair, don't know what happened here, but there are a ton of paint bubbles that look like they popped in the hair. Yeah, he's got some pretty sleek hair gel, and then there are all these bubbles. Yeah, that's not only noticeable up close, you can see it from far away too. However, for the rest of the figure, it looks just fine with some nice black, green, and white paint applications throughout the main body. The only thing that kind of looks a little iffy is going to be the hand parts, which kind of look like crinkly, old, deformed hands. Yeah, look kind of weird. Yeah. There's no cape, so we don't have to talk about that or worry about any tattering whatsoever. So yeah, the Green Lantern is pretty slick. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about the Predator, and this is what I'm talking about for a rather unique Predator design, much better than the one that came with the armored Batman. The Predator here is really not going to have that many translucent parts in the main body. The accessories are going to have translucent parts, and that blaster backpack is going to be translucent as well. But overall, for this Predator, we don't have a whole bunch of hoses that are hanging off of it that you might rip if you move the figure in any way, shape, or form, except on the backpack, which that's not really going to move that much, so you're mostly fine there. The only real concern that we have here is, well, I could imagine the paint application could be a bit dodgy from unit to unit. On this one, taking it out of the box, there was no issue in terms of stuck joints whatsoever or any paint flakage. So out of all of the ones that were released, this one is perfect, dare I say. Yep, I really like the paint shading. I do like the weathering that was used. I wish they could just get rid of the netting if this Predator didn't have it. NECA, you really need to make a body with that style, but yeah. This is a mishmash of a few different Predators, including the City Hunter. We do have that net on the leg there that you can't really use for anything. Yeah, overall, the Predator's great. Articulation time for the Predator, and I do have to say this guy moves really well. Like I made mention, there are no tubes to get in the way of the articulation just up here on the collarbone, if you will, of the Predator, so we don't really have to worry about moving this guy around. We do have a peg that the head plugs into, so this way we can spin the Predator's head around. And then there's a ball joint that plugs into the body that peg is attached to, so we get nice movement for the Predator's head. He can look in all sorts of different directions, which is very cool. We do have swivels where the shoulders plug into the body, so we can spin the Predator's arm like that, and hinges so we can raise and lower the arms. Now, the only issue here is that this shoulder pad is attached to the bicep, and that does block the articulation when raising and lowering the Predator's arm, so do keep that in mind. We do have dedicated bicep swivels, so we can spin the Predator's arm around, and we have double elbow hinges, which work really well on mine. Now, the gauntlets for the Predator are plugged into the sculpt near the elbow on pegs, so they do have swivels, so you can spin those around. For the wrists, they do have swivels and hinges, so we do have some nice movement there. We do have an ab crunch, which, it's got some okay movement there. We can spin the Predator, crunch back and forward a little bit, but not overall too much. And then we do have a waist joint, which does just feel a bit like a ball joint, which is great. Something to keep in mind here is that we do have all of this equipment here on the Predator's back, but NECA actually thought about this a bit, and this sort of spinal column, which looks like it attaches into the back, it actually doesn't. It's a separate floating piece, so you don't really have to worry about the sheath too much. It looks just fine. For the hips, we are going to have swivels, so this way the Predator can kick out forward that far and back about that far due to the sculpt on his booty. And then we have hinges as well, so this way the Predator can do the splits like so. We do have thigh swivels, which work really well on mine. We do have a dedicated double knee hinge, which that's going to be stuck a little bit, except for now I just freed it up. That worked just fine. And then for the ankles, we are going to have ball jointed movement, which works well. For the back blaster cannon, we are going to have two ball joints, one where this portion plugs into it, and then the actual cannon itself has a ball joint as well, so we can get some nice movement. Overall, the Sinestro Corps Predator is awesome, and I really do like the range of movement that he has. Green Lantern time, and yep, this is the fourth time I'm going over this, so you pretty much know what the articulation is going to be. The head plugs into the body on a ball joint, but thanks to the fact that he has no cowl or anything like that, he has some great range of movement looking forward, looking up, looking down, looking in all sorts of different directions. Probably what I believe to be the best articulation for the DC heroes. Okay, we do have a swivel where the shoulders plug into the body, so we can spin the arm around like so. Yep, there we go. This one was actually super stuck on mine, so it's nice to see that it got freed up, especially the hinge, which allows us to raise and lower the arms. We do have a dedicated bicep swivel. Just make sure you work it to free it up, and you'll have some nice fluid movement. We do have a double elbow hinge, which works rather well. This one, it's giving me some problems now. It was freed up earlier, but does that one work? Yeah, kind of. Okay, so you can see that there. You can also see some paint flaking there in the hinge, which is no bueno. No bueno. For the wrists, we are going to have swivels and hinges, but just keep in mind that there's a lot of paint in there for the joint, so yeah, you are going to probably get some flaking. We do have an ab joint, ab crunch, which is going to be on a hinge, so this way we can crunch down and back, that's okay. And then effectively just a waist swivel here, so we can spin the superhero around. Pretty cool. For the hips, swivels, so this way he can kick forward and back about that far. We are going to have hinges, so this way he can do the Green Lantern splits. Thigh swivels as usual, so he can spin the legs around. Double knee hinge. Come on, get one of them to work. There we go. We are going to have hinges at the ankles, so this way we can move the feet forward and back. And then those hinges are going to have a peg for an ankle rocker along with a toe hinge. Green Lantern works. I really like this one. Time to talk about accessories, and we'll go ahead and start with the Green Lantern. We do have the John Stewart alternate head sculpt. We have 3 different Green Lantern ring blast parts. We do actually have a lantern, or lamp, whatever you're going to call it, and alternate hand parts. So let's go ahead and take a look at the John Stewart head sculpt, and I gotta say, this is looking pretty good. He has some great facial hair there, looks pretty good. The actual hair is neat. The eyes, well, I do have to say here, if you have a chance to actually inspect your set before you take it home, definitely take a look at the eyes, because I have seen some John Stewarts with weird looking eyes. Now for the effect parts that we get one little circular blast part that makes it look like the Green Lantern's getting ready to charge up, or it's just a, general effect part. We get one little splurt part, which, okay, pretty cool. Short range burst, and then we get one long burst with a splash effect at the end. I do have to warn you for this one, though, it is rather heavy, considerably speaking, and it may weigh the wrist joint down, and it may cause it to droop over time, so just be careful with how you use this. Now for the alternate hand parts, we get a right hand part, so this way you can insert all of the effect parts, and then we get a left hand part, which is about as hard as stone, so this way he can actually hold the lamp, or the lantern, whatever you're going to call it. I would recommend heating up this hand before you put it in, so this way, you don't tear any plastic. But anyway, the actual lantern is going to look just fine with no real concerns for paint. Now moving on over to the Predator, we get some neat accessories as well, with a new head sculpt that's not masked. He just looks normal. He's going to come with an alternate left and right hand part. He's going to have an extended disc blade of doom, a sword, and not necessarily a combi stick, more like a spear. So taking a look at that alternate head part, ooh, yeah, the face is looking pretty gnarly with a nice yellow paint application with some browns to really bring out the details, and of course some little black dots here and there. No beads on the dreadlocks, which, that's okay. But for the eyes, you're really going to have to look at the Predator from a downward angle. So, yeah. Or looking at it up from down. Anyway, yeah, you have to look underneath to take a look at the eyes. So that's a little bit of a bummer. But moving on from there, we do have the Super Blade of Doom that is going to extend there. You can pose the Predator throwing it or holding it, whatever you would prefer. And then we do get the sword, which does look pretty dang sweet. It's nice to see that we have a Predator with a sword. Very, very cool. And of course, we are going to have that spear or pike or whatever you're going to call it as well. And man, is that a pretty neat effect part there, or an accessory. All of the accessories are cast in translucent plastic, so do keep in mind that you're not going to want to push anything too hard lest you break it. And unfortunately, it does show some molding processing issues. So if you're afraid of maybe like a little sprue getting clipped off incorrectly at the factory and it being an eyesore, this is going to bug you. And then, of course, we do have the alternate left and right hand parts, just so this way you can hold weapons. So overall for this set, it is jam-packed with accessories. And aside from splayed hands for the Green Lantern to have, yeah, we pretty much get everything. Now it's time for a size comparison, and just to make this section easier in editing, I put all of the respective Comic-Con sets together, so this way you can see how big they are with your other figures. So for an example, all of the SDCC figures will be together, and all the NYCC figures will be together. Okay? So as you can see here, these superheroes look just fine in the 7-inch scale, and your Predators and Aliens, yeah, well, guess what? They're going to be your standard size. So by now, Skipper, wait for a deal. Overall, unanimous across the board. Aside from some paint issues and articulation issues I had with the Green Lantern to begin with, this set is a must-buy if you are a fan. Literally, the only thing that I wish could be fixed, which you can fix the paint and the articulation issues there being stuck, is just give the Green Lantern some splayed hands. Aside from that, I mean, this thing is pretty much perfect. It's my favorite of the 4 sets, and even knowing what I know now that I had some issues with the Green Lantern, I'd still go ahead and buy this again if I didn't have it, so safe buy. Well, collectors, that brings us to the end of the video today, and I just wanted to take a second to thank you so much for watching. Now, you've heard a lot from me. I'd like to hear a little bit from you. Drop in the comments down below whether or not you liked it, you hated it, or maybe you were somewhere in between. I also want to take an extra second here for a nice, humongous thank you to all the patrons for SDR over the last month who have really helped the channel grow into what it can be today. So to all of you, 2 big thumbs up. Thank you very much. And now the end card should be popping up, which will give you a few clickable links, like maybe to subscribe or head on over to my Patreon, or some short URLs like to my social media or to my Teespring store. There's also a video I hand-selected for you, so if you want to watch another STR video, I hand-selected some good content for you to watch, so definitely check out that video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next video.